Heyo! Welcome to the Team SNG deck profile. Today we are going to be going back to our Signer Dragons, looking at our combination deck that combines Red Dragon, Archfiend, and Stardust. While I got your attention, I'd like to ask you guys, leave us a like, leave us a comment, leave us a subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our future uploads. And also, make sure you join us on May 8th, midday GMT, as we will be beginning our 24-hour live stream to celebrate 200 subscribers. So with that all being said, let's get into this deck profile. This deck's an interesting deck. It utilizes Junk Speeder, which is one of those cards that came out as support for Yusei Fudo and his Stardust, but actually turbos out Jack Atlas's Red Dragon Archfiends so much better. Let's get into it. Starting off with our monsters, we're going to talk about the synchro engine that we run. The first thing we're going to talk about is the different synchrons that we run in the deck, seeing as we run a large selection to facilitate plays utilizing Junk Speeder. First of which is actually Cyber's Synchron. Now this is a Yusaku tuner, but it's called a Synchron, so it works well with this whole deck. Cyber's Synchron is an interesting card. Once per turn, you could target a level 4 or lower monster on your side of the field, double its level, which makes manipulating levels a lot better, and it makes it easier for you to get the levels you require on field to go into your synchro plays. Also, if your monster that is in the extra monster zone would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard. So if you end up putting your Supernova into your extra monster zone, your Supernova is protected once per turn from destruction, which can be really useful. Next, we run 2 copies of the level 2 Fleur Synchron. Fleur Synchron is a useful card in the fact that it's a level 2 tuner, and this deck really utilizes level 2 tuners very well, which you'll see in the test hands linked down below. When this card is used as synchro material, though, it lets you summon a level 2 monster from your hand. Next on to our level 3 Synchrons. We run 3 copies of the main play starter for the deck in Junk Synchron, but we also run 1 copy of Drill Synchron, and that's because we want to be able to utilize Junk Synchron multiple times, and so it's sometimes better to bring Drill Synchron out using your Junk Speeder than another copy of Junk Synchron, so that you've got Junk Synchron for later in the game. Finally, we run 1 copy of Road Synchron. Now, this is another level 2 Synchron. Oh, shoot, no, it says level 4. Well, we're not using it for Road Warrior, so it's a level 2. And that's really useful because you can use a level 3 him and either Cyber's or Fleur Synchron with your Junk Speeder, and that will get you straight into your Supernova Red Dragon Archfiend. So you've got different options of how to get to your Supernova, but he facilitates it by just being another level 2 on the field. That does it for our Synchrons. Now on to some of the Synchron support that we run. One of the best Synchron support cards to come out in ever is 3 copies of Junk Converter. Junk Converter facilitates everything. You can discard this card and a tuner to search a Synchron monster from your deck to your hand. It's also a level 2 monster, so if you search out Junk Synchron, you can normal Junk Synchron and special this from the grave, and that'll get you into your Junk Speeder. So if you have this card and any of your tuners, you're pretty much well set. Also, if this card is used as synchro material, you can target a tuner monster in your grave and special summon it to the field. So potentially you could get Junk Speeder out, and then you could put your tuner monster that you discarded for Junk Converter back onto the field, and then Junk Speeder is also going to summon out a bunch of tuners. So that's really useful. Next we run 3 copies of Synchron Carrier. Synchron Carrier is an interesting card this deck has access to. He lets you have an additional normal summon of a Synchron monster from your hand. So you can utilize this and your Junk Synchron to go into your Junk Speeder, but at the same time, you could utilize this with your Cyber Synchron, because if your Cyber Synchron hits the field, you can actually target this with Cyber Synchron, making it level 4, and then you can tune it and your Cyber Synchron into your Junk Speeder as well. So it's just another card that's really useful for getting the deck set up. Also, if you were to Synchro Summon your Junk Speeder while this is on the field, you can actually produce a token as well. So that can be useful too, because it gives you another non-tuner that you can utilize. The final Synchron support that we run is 2 copies of Synchron Explorer. When this card is normal summoned, you can select a Synchron monster in your grave and special summon it. Now on to some more Synchro support monsters. First are 3 copies of Junk Forward. Aside from Junk Warrior, we run 2 copies of Doppel Warrior. Doppel Warrior is really useful because of his ability to produce tokens when he's used as synchro material. Finally, we run one other package in here. It's really, really small, and it's literally just to get some more non-tuners on the board, because getting tuners on the board is not a problem. The first of these is TG Booster Raptor. We only run 2 copies because he requires a TG monster on the field, and while we do run 1 in the extra deck, for the most part, we're only ever going to get this on the board if we have one of our 3 copies of TG Warwolf. TG Warwolf can special summon himself from your hand if a level 4 or lower monster is special summoned. The idea behind this is that you special summon some tuners, or you special summon a tuner, then you special summon TG Warwolf, he acts as a second non-tuner, and you could then also later in the turn potentially special summon your TG Booster Raptor so long as you still have Warwolf on the field. So these feed each other, but they're not really super consistent, which is why we only run 5. That does it for our monsters. Onto our spell traps. So the first thing we run to add some consistency is tuning. Next, we need some draw power to make sure we do see our synchrons. Now this can be a bit risky, just because of the fact that if you are to banish off any of your tuners, you could be in trouble. And I'm of course talking about Pot of Desires. Finally, we run a few one-ofs. Monster Reborn is always just a good option for us to have access to. Reinforcements of the Army is another copy of our Junk Synchron. And finally, Foolish Burial. Those are for our spells. Onto our traps, we run 3 copies of Red Rain. I love this card. I love this card. You can activate this card, and only if you control a level 8 or higher synchro monster. This card can banish off all monsters on the field except the monster with the highest level. And seeing as Supernova is level 12, he's probably not getting banished off with this. Also, the remaining face-up monsters on the field are unaffected by card effects, making your Supernova into an Ultimate Falcon for a turn, or into a Full Armor Master for a turn. So that's really useful, because now your opponent's in a situation where, well, getting rid of your Supernova should be their priority, but is now very, very difficult. And you can basically sit at your end phase, and you can go, end phase? Sure. Supernova. Banish that off, and then banish off their entire field going into your own turn. Also, later on in the game, if this card is in your graveyard and you summon a Dark Synchro Dragon, then you can add this card back to your hand, so it recurs itself really nicely. Finally, we run 2 more traps in TG Stun. This is just a useful card because it stops an attack. It is basically just a negate attack that puts a body on board. It summons out one of your TG monsters from your deck, which, fair enough, not massively important, that part, but the fact it just negates a attack can be useful to protect your field if you're in a weird situation and you've ended up sitting on a very awkward board. That does it for our traps. Onto our extra deck. So our extra deck is mostly all about, well, you guessed it, Junk Speeder. Junk Speeder is such a good card. What this card lets you do is, when it is synchro summoned, you can summon synchron tuners with different levels from your deck. This does lock you into synchro summoning for the turn. It does have an attack boosting effect as well, but that really never comes into play, as your goal is to effectively get him off the board ASAP. Next, we run some synchro tuners, and that is because of the fact that we do run some Stardust stuff in here. So synchro tuners are required to get some of the bigger Stardust monsters on the field. Now, we're not running Quasar, as you'll see. We do run 1 copy of Excel Synchron. Level Manipulation plus his ability to synchro summon on your opponent's turn can sometimes be useful if you're not necessarily sure which of your Stardust monsters you want to go into. Next, we run 1 copy of TG Star Guardian. This is a little tougher to get into because it requires a TG non-tuner, but it can then recur said TG non-tuner and put said TG non-tuner back on the board. So it can be useful in that sense, and it can definitely help set yourself up for later. Plus, it also has the ability that it can synchro summon on your opponent's turn. Finally, we run 1 copy of our Shooting Riser Dragon. This card, again, it facilitates your Stardust plays. It helps set your graveyard up. It can manipulate its level by sending a tuner from the deck to the grave and then lowering its level based on that monster's level. So at the end of the day, you are in good shape because you are going to be able to manipulate your levels to whatever you require so as to go into your Stardust engine. Next, onto our Stardust engine. Let's talk about that package because it's a little less important to the deck. First is typical Stardust Dragon. You gotta run the classics. I believe in the classics. I think they're great. Then you run one copy of Stardust Chronicles. Oh my god, what is up with this lag? One copy of Stardust Chronicles Spark Dragon. This card lets you banish a synchro monster from your grave, and then it becomes unaffected by card effects for the rest of the turn. Also, if it's destroyed by an opponent's card, whether that is through battle or card effect, what it will let you do is it will let you special summon one of your synchro dragons from the graveyards. Next is the kind of busted Shooting Star Dragon TG EX. I'm assuming that EX stands for Extreme. Someone in the comments is going to tell me that's not what it stands for. Anyway, what this card lets you do is, as a quick effect, if your opponent activates a card that targets something on your field, you can banish a tuner from your grave and negate that activation and destroy that card. That isn't once per turn, by the way, guys. That is so long as you have tuners to banish, which is a little bit busted. It then has two additional effects which can only be used once per turn, and they are, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can negate that attack. The other is, during your opponent's turn, you can tribute 2 synchro monsters on the field to special summon this back from the grave. A little less relevant, because typically if you've gone into this, you ain't gonna have a whole lot of synchros left on the field. But this is pseudo busted in my head just because of the fact that it basically acts as a negate for any targeting so long as you have tuners in the grave, and well, with Junk Speeder you're gonna have lots of tuners in the grave, so that's not a problem. Finally, the boss monster of the Stardust engine that we run. Everyone's going to complain it's not Quasar or Blazar, but I understand that. But the reason we're running this is a little more difficult to get into, what with its strict requirements of using Stardust Dragon. But this does have a very useful effect in that you can reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and it can attack up to the number of tuners that you revealed. Next, this also has an effect that once per turn, you can negate the activation of a card effect that would destroy cards on the field. So, yet again, that can be useful because it protects your board. And finally, you can banish this card to negate an attack, and then this card will special summon itself back after being banished because you will have had to have summoned it correctly. So it's not like when you bring it out with Quasar and you're sort of locked into not being able to use its final effect. So its final effect is useful here. So that does it for our Stardusts. Onto our Red Dragons. I love Red Dragon Archfiend. It was the first synchro monster I got, so guess what? We're running a Red Dragon Archfiend. Big, beefy boy, destroys defense position stuff, wipes out a board if your opponent doesn't attack with everything. Next we run his big brother, which acts as negation. Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. Now this can be useful because it can help set yourself back up if it deals battle damage, because it can summon a tuner from the grave. But at the end of the day, it's really here because it acts as a negation. Although, typically we are using it to climb into Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane is basically just a bigger boost on Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. If it inflicts battle damage, it produces not 1 but 2 tuners by letting you special summon 1 from your deck and 1 from your grave with the same level. And the idea behind that is that you'll actually go into your Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Calamity, who basically acts as a blanket negate on the turn he is summoned. And he's huge. 4k BD. Nice. And he also burns your opponent if he destroys a card by battle. So that can be really useful. Now, these are all nice options. However, sometimes you really just need that board wipe, and while Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend can really be that option, it can just give you another option to climb into this and use this to board wipe your opponent. But at the end of the day, the best board wipe this deck has access to is the new Super... Oh no, hang on, that's a mistake. Give me 1 sec. This almost never happens. I know. Much better. Supernova Dragon, the reason we're proxying it with our mistake is, well, it's still coming in the mail, guys. This is the big boss monster the deck aims to turbo out. It can quick effect banish itself and everything on the field to really screw up your opponent. It can also put itself back on the board, which is really useful. And this acts as the big boss monster the deck aims to turbo out. And that does it for the extra deck. At the end of the day, this deck is definitely susceptible to hand traps, Ash Blossom in particular. Because if you were to Ash Blossom the Junk Speeder, this deck isn't going to be able to do what it wants to do, which is turbo out a bunch of tuners to get to its big boss monsters. However, the deck is also very consistent. What with our Junk Converter and any tuner letting us act as a 1.5 card combo start. And we can also use our Synchron Carrier to give ourselves that combo, so long as we have a Cyber Synchron or a Junk Synchron. Any of these 2-card combos can basically get your game going and get yourself to your Junk Speeder. Your Junk Speeder then gets you to your bigger boss monsters, so long as your Junk Speeder doesn't get Ash. And at the end of the day, we do run an interesting lineup, what with Red Rain here being able to banish off the field while making our big boss monster unaffected by card effects. And the recursion Red Rain offers us is also really nice. As for our extra deck, being able to obviously utilize Junk Speeder to give ourselves access to lots of tuners all at once can be really valuable, especially if we want to go into either the Stardust or the Red Dragon Archfiend engine. And realistically, if you're looking to put on some negates, maybe Stardust is the option you want to go with into your Shooting Star Dragon TG Extreme, or into your Mistake. Dang it! Into your Supernova Dragon. These are options that you have in the extra deck, making it a bit of a versatile deck in the sense that you can decide on which way you want to go, and potentially it is possible to end up with both on the board at the same time. That being said, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave us a like, leave us a comment, leave us a subscribe. Check out the test hands, links down below. And make sure you join us on May 8th, which is this Saturday, guys, at midday GMT for the 24-hour live stream, which will have this deck featured in it. At this point, all I can say is, I'll see you guys at the next video.